Good morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. So there's a Peanuts cartoon that I love, and Charlie Brown is standing and he's got his head down, he's kind of looking sad and depressed, and he says these words, "This is my depressed stance. When you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you could do is stand up straight and hold your head high, because then you'll start to feel better. If you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you got to stand like this." And I love that because there's a lot more wisdom in that than we realize. He's saying if you want to be depressed, there's something you need to do in the way you stand. And that if you stand in a different way, that you can feel better. That how we stand in life can make the difference between feeling better or worse, feeling positive or negative, feeling good or bad, feeling like a victim or feeling like an empowered co-creator. You know, I have this theory that it takes as much energy to live a happy and fulfilling life as it does to takes to live an unhappy and unfulfilling life. Does that make sense? I think it takes as much mental energy and emotional energy and belief and attitude to live either kind of life. The question is, what kind of stance are you taking? How are you choosing to live and relate to life? We are in the 7th week of our 9-week series called Mastering Life. And it is, we're looking at the book, This Life is Joy by Roger Teal. And you know, every one of us wants to have a better life. When the new year begins, we think that better life is setting some goals and setting some resolutions. You know, I'll lose some weight, go to the gym more often. You know, I'll increase my income, you know, get a new house, get a new car. And those are good and fine. But what if we went to a higher level of wanting to improve and make our lives better by maybe setting an intention to live a more awakened life, to live a more enlightened life, to live more spiritually, to live more consciously, to live more intentionally, to live a more masterful life. Could you imagine living a life as masterful as Shakespeare wrote, as masterful as Mozart composed, as masterful as Da Vinci painted? Can you imagine what would your life look like if you lived in a more masterful way? How would you approach relationships differently? How would you approach your job differently? How would you approach yourself and your view of the world differently? To me, a masterful life is within our reach and our grasp, and it begins by understanding that this world works by spiritual laws, that there are divine laws and principles at work, and we need to awaken our minds to them and then live them, embody them, and live them more consistently and consciously. In this book, Roger Teal gives this story about this guy who had fulfilled everything, but he was feeling empty, and he went to this great sage who said, I want to have a more fulfilling life. And he said, okay. She said, well, I'll just put you in this situation that'll challenge you and make you approach life in a new way. So he gets put into this cave, and he's trying to get his way out, struggling, and he's bruising his fingers, and days go by, and he can't get out, and finally he gives up. And it's only in his giving up and surrendering and taking a breath and turning within does he realize that he thought he was in the cave, but the cave was actually in him. It was his aggressive behavior of trying to get out and struggle against the cave. But when he turned within, he expanded, and the cave's restrictions actually reduced. And the whole message is the cave represents whatever you think is holding you back from living a happy life. And what we need to do to live a masterful life is to have a more masterful relationship with anything we think that is holding us back. And there are many caves in life that we're afraid to enter. The caves of fear or our problems or judgment or conflict. And there's a wonderful line that says, the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you are seeking. Whatever it is that scares you or you think is stopping you from living a full life, it is entering it in a masterful way that will raise you to a higher level and live a greater level of mastery. So we've looked at mastering fear and problems, mastering judgment, mastering conflict. Today we're looking at 2 other challenges that we sometimes face in life, and that is to master disease and to master change. Here's what Roger Teal says. He says the experience of disease is one of the most challenging and difficult aspects of human experience. The term is often used to indicate disorders of the physical body. However, disorders or diseased states can afflict any area, the mental, emotional, psychological. It can affect relationships, vocations, career, finances, just about any facet of the human experience. It's interesting, the leading diseases in our country are heart disease, cancer, respiratory diseases. And it's interesting our relationship and our perspective on disease. Stephen Levine wrote a book called Healing into Life and Death, and he says, in our culture, our view of disease is if you overcome it and you beat the odds, you're considered a superstar, a hero. It was healing, it was miraculous, it's great. But he says, unfortunately, when people succumb and either die from a disease, without saying it, in a way, we think it's a bit of a failure. We think that they did something wrong or they gave in. And he said it's unfortunate that we have a perspective that someone did something wrong or something didn't do something right in our view of how we see disease. So sometimes we can feel bad or ashamed about these things. And he said we have a limited perspective that we need to transform around the whole idea about disease and what healing is. He said believing that being physically whole is the only definition of healing is like believing that having money is the only definition of wealth and prosperity. And so he said we really need to expand that. I've known people who've had cancer who have had it go into remission, have overcome and lived years beyond it. And I've known individuals who have had cancer and that they died, that they spent time with their families healing and that last time appreciating the moments, and they died. And I think both are different stories of healing. They come in different, healing comes in different forms. And sometimes we need to change our perspective. You know, when I was in school, in seminary, we used to give talks on all kinds of subjects, there'd be groups of 10, and everybody had to give a talk on whether it was love or prayer or meditation or thanksgiving or gratitude. And there was one talk that scared me and terrified me, and that is we had to do a talk on physical healing. And I have never been more terrified to give a talk in my life. It was the most difficult because a part of me felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed and inadequate. How am I going to get up there and have any credibility talking about physical healing when I can't walk, when I'm paralyzed? How can I represent unity when all we talk about the power of affirmative prayer and our thoughts and experiences create our reality? How can I stand there and say, it is done unto you according to your faith, and with God all things are possible, when for me, I have not been able to do that? Jesus healed all manner of disease, the blind and the lame. I mean, you know, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity, both had physical impairments that were healed. And here am I trying to be a Unity minister, and I got to stand up and give a talk. And so I never spoke about it in public except once in my 20 years of being a minister. So this week I'm looking at the book, and what pops up? Disease. And I'm thinking, I'm the minister. I can change that talk. I can avoid this situation and not feel embarrassed. And sometimes, you know, you think stuff like, maybe, what am I doing wrong? How come I'm not how can I get this area of my life not to work? You ever had an area in your life that doesn't work in as well as you want? Maybe finances, a relationship, family, maybe an addiction, and you haven't been able to get it together, and you wonder, why am I not getting it right? How come this thing isn't getting better? Anybody have that? Or is it just me? Apparently, if there are 5 or 6 of us, that's okay. I kind of felt like Charlie Brown in another comic strip when he said, sometimes I lie awake at night and ask, where have I gone wrong? Then a voice says to me, this is going to take more than one night, Charlie Brown. This is going to take more than one night, Reverend Maraj. It's going to take more than one night. When I was in seminary, what really helped me was James Dillett Freeman, who wrote the Prayer of Protection, and he started the seminary. He was about 90 years old at the time, just like a real genius in Unity. One of the classmates of mine asked the question, so in all your years of studying spirituality and studying life and all that you've learned, what is the single greatest thing you've learned? And here's what he said. He said, I've learned that everyone in this world is hurting in some way. That whether they're lost or lonely or wounded or struggling through an illness or family issue, everyone is in need of healing. And he said the most important work that any of us can do is to do work on healing ourselves so we can be more whole, to bring more light and love into the world. And that really helped me a lot because I reflected back on my being paralyzed and how I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But in many ways, when I looked, it is the thing that has taught me the most. It brought me to my knees, but caused me to go deeper. It has brought me levels of compassion and understanding. It has brought me levels of faith and focus and being positive and always seeing the good. It has helped me to drive myself and push myself to bring out things in me I never thought would be there. It has helped me rise and try things I never thought I'd try. I went hang gliding and skydiving and skiing. I'll never do them again, but I did them once. I competed at Toastmasters World Championship of Public Speaking. I competed at the World University Debating Championships. I didn't win either, but I was there. But the bottom line is that, somebody once said to me, "You've done so well in spite of what's happened to you." And I thought to myself, I have done well because of what's happened to me. Every single one of us. Every single one of us are who we are today, not because life has been so easy. It is because we have been pushed beyond what we thought our limits would be. We were forced to go deeper. Sometimes dis-ease, whether it's in the body or whether it's in a relationship or our finances, pushes us to go deeper into God, pushes us to go deeper into who we truly are, to discover the greater depths of beauty and wisdom and peace and genius and creativity that is there. Sometimes when life isn't easy, we don't push ourselves that hard, but sometimes these situations invite us into discovery, invite us into a deeper experience and awareness of who we are. It's not a sign of failure. It's not a sign we did something wrong. It's not a sign of being punished. It is an opportunity to move to a different level. One of the things he said in a book that I really love, he said there's a difference between cure and healing. Cure can just have the outside look like it's okay, but healing is something deeper. Sometimes we could be cured and not healed. Sometimes we could be healed and not cured. And sometimes we can be healed and cured. Because to me, healing is a revealing of a greater, deeper expression of who we really are and a greater experience of joy. I remember when I was a kid, I've shared this many times, I used to love to help my mom bake cakes, AKA get in her way, but she let me. And she had this thing she'd always tell me, and she'd say, Richard, we need to put the oven at 375, and in 45 minutes we'll have the cake. And I always say, Mom, let's turn it to 400, and then we can have it in 15 minutes. And here's what her answer was. She says, we could do that, Richard, but in that way, it might look baked on the outside, but it won't be done on the inside. And so we could sometimes make things look nice on the outside, but true healing is what's going on the inside. Healing is a revealing of God's Spirit, a revealing of God's peace, and revealing of the truth of who we all came here to be and what we came here to do. Disease isn't punishment. It's not failure. It is an opportunity for discovery. So what in you needs to be healed? What in you needs to happen to feel more peace, to express more love, to feel a greater experience of God? And I think it's inviting questions of saying, what is this here to teach me? What am I here to learn? What do I need to release? What do I need to accept? What do I need to embrace? What am I seeing that I'm not currently seeing? And in what way is this calling me to live a fuller life? In what way is this calling me to express more joy or more vulnerability or honesty to myself and others? Disease is not a punishment or a failure. That is an opportunity for discovery and a deeper healing and a revealing of your amazing spirit and the beauty and truths and gifts that are in each and every one of us. If we change our relationship and our perspective or our stance, as Charlie Brown would say, with regard to disease, it will transform us into a more masterful relationship with it. The second thing is about change. It's amazing. Human beings don't like change. We don't like change. We resist change like crazy. We can't stand. Somebody wrote a book once called Who Moved My Cheese? We don't like our cheese moved. We don't like our cheese moved at all. If anything different in our lives, we don't like it. The other day I went to a different Fry's other than my fries, and they did not have the stuff in the same place. They moved my cheese, and I did not like it. It's amazing. All kinds of different things change in our life, and it's amazing how we resist it. But sometimes jobs change. Sometimes we have to move. Sometimes a new person takes over our work, and when there's a new work format or new rules. Sometimes a relationship ends. Sometimes we lose a loved one. It is amazing. We resist every kind of change, even aging. We don't like aging because it represents change. Because the body parts that were in one position no longer in their original starting position. You know what I'm saying? The thing I've not been enjoying myself about aging is I've always had like a really full, thick hair to curly hair, and it's getting thin, man. It's getting me nervous. I don't like it. Don't like it a bit. Why is it when you get older, hair stops growing where you want it to grow and starts growing in places you don't want it to grow? That's not right. That's not right. Change, it makes us uncomfortable. We don't like it. So what do? We resist change. We're afraid of change. We think change is bad. And so my question, what's your relationship with change? Are you afraid of it? You're scared of it? Or are you willing to welcome change? To accept and embrace change and know that it will be good even if you can't see that good right now? Because you know what change does that scares us the most? It represents an ending. Something has come to an end, and we don't like endings. Even when it was something we didn't like, it's still an ending, and it scares us. We feel grief and sadness that we lost a way of life. And then we wonder, will anything else better come? And the thing is, there's always a period of grief. There's always a period that you've ended it, but the new thing hasn't started, and we don't like that discomfort. But that discomfort represents possibility. It represents rebirth, a reinvigoration. It represents, new possibilities and chances and opportunities and gifts. So I ask you, what change in your life are you resisting? What change are you clinging on to that you haven't allowed yourself to let go and fully embrace and move into that change? Change gives us three great gifts. It is a renewal. And the first one is that change is necessary for us to grow, to evolve. It's necessary for us to have progress, to have breakthroughs. You can't have breakthroughs without change. Ever think stuff like, oh, I wish life would just always be this way? You know what would happen? We would stagnate. It would get dull. It would get boring. Change helps us have new creative ideas and think out of the box, puts us in new situations. And the second thing about change is it shows us that the universe is pregnant with possibilities. That no matter what has ended, there will be a new possibility. There'll be a new opportunity. There will be new experiences. No matter what ends, the universe is so filled with unlimited possibilities, God has more in store. Universe by change is showing you there's more in store. There's more new stuff. There's more good stuff. Even when you lose a loved one and you feel like your heart is broken and it'll never go on, the impulse of love in you will want you to keep loving, keep living, keep giving, keep forgiving. Keep expressing and expanding yourself into this full gift we call life. And the third thing about change, there is always a spiral upward evolution to the fulfillment of our soul and to know our oneness with the divine. Somebody once said, what a caterpillar calls the end, the world calls a butterfly. And the thing about a butterfly is that as a caterpillar, it has to die to its old self. And as I said, get to that place where it's no longer a caterpillar, but it ain't a butterfly either. And it's in that empty void and space that we need to trust God and allow ourselves to be transformed and lifted into the butterfly. And the butterfly can see things a caterpillar never could. A butterfly expresses beauty that a caterpillar never could. And where we are right now, life is calling us to evolve and to let the impulse within us help us rise to that butterfly level. When we accept change and change our relationship with change, three things happen. Number one, we enjoy the moments and savor them more. Because we're not afraid to cling to them because they're going to end. You just realize this gift and moment is precious. It's not going to last. So enjoy it and invest ourselves fully in it. Secondly, change invites us into being more flexible and going with the flow. Somebody once said, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. You ever been rigid that things not going your way and you get upset because they didn't go exactly your way? Sometimes change says, be more flexible. Go with the flow. Here's what Robert Rain says about going with the flow. He says, going with the flow is a willingness to be vulnerable, to have your plans changed, to have your heart broken, to have your dreams unfulfilled. Going with the flow is trusting that God is in the rapids of change as well as in the rocks of continuity. Going with the flow means that you stop digging your heels in against the tide of tomorrow and start exercising the suppleness of spirit. So how flexible are you? How willing to adapt are you? How willing to adjust? How willing are you to let go of your plans and allow some greater plans to come? My life is different than I ever wanted it to be or ever expected it to be, and yet it's more fulfilling than I ever imagined it could be. We all need to be flexible and to allow Spirit to let it take its course in our lives and not resist, not cling, not hold on, or fear change. And then the third thing is you got to enjoy the process. Life is a process. It said in Scripture, it says first the blade, then the ear, then the full ear, and the corn. Things unfold in a process. You don't instantly go from one thing to the other. We'd be missing the boat on it. To have a baby, it takes 9 months. There's a process of growth and change and transformation. You can't rush those things. Enjoy the process. Somebody once said, you don't sing a song just to get to the end of it. You sing it to enjoy it. Are you enjoying the journey and process of your life? Or are you so fixated on the end that you're missing all the joy of all the steps it takes to get on the way? I saw a thing, they had an interview with comedians, Seinfeld and all those guys, and they're getting there and they're chatting. And you know what they're chatting about? They're all famous, and they're talking about, remember when we told that joke and it bombed? You remember working out jokes, so you go to different clubs and you try it out and then you try new things. They talked about all the things. They talked about the process of getting there. They didn't talk about just being there. So are you enjoying the process of your life, the process for your goals, the process, to improve, the process to create the things that you want? Because life is a journey. Everybody wants security. We're afraid of change because we're scared. But you know what the most secure and stable thing is your willingness and your ability to change. The willing and your ability to be flexible and to roll and adjust and to be open to allow Spirit to use your life in an amazing way. Here's a great quote by Marianne Williamson. She said this: "We are not held back by the love we didn't get in the past. We are only held back by the love we are not sharing in the present." Isn't that powerful? You are not held back because some change happened that you didn't like or some dis-ease in some area of our life isn't working. It's how you're showing up right now. How are you loving now? How are you appreciating now? How are you forgiving and rejoicing and appreciating how precious your life is? This doesn't last for any of us. It's moving. And that invites us to go a little deeper and cherish it and live it as fully and joyously as we can. Life isn't easy for any of us, but we do have a choice. Like Charlie Brown, you can make a stance to feel depressed and to make it worse, or we can make a different stance to make it better and to feel more joyful. So in your life, we can choose to make a stance to feel miserable or masterful. And when it comes to disease and change, my question for you is, are you willing to rise to a level of mastery in both of those so you could realize that this life is joy and choose to handle both situations in a masterful way? God bless you all.